For 2 years, I paid my parents' mortgage, my sister's student loans, and even her luxury dinners, all while skipping my own dentist visits to make ends meet. Then one afternoon, I opened my mother's filing cabinet and found a document that made me realize the truth. I was never the daughter they loved. I was just the one who paid. What I did next, it changed everything. I gripped my water glass so tightly I thought it might shatter in my hand. The clink of cutlery, the low hum of crystal against porcelain. It should have been an elegant family dinner. It was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, I sat surrounded by people who had no idea they'd just pushed me 1 inch too far. "Well," my mother said, lifting her wine glass, "some daughters chase passion, others secure power, and that's why Sierra will always come out on top." Silence collapsed across the table. My father cleared his throat. My sister gave a modest smile, dabbing her lips with a linen napkin like the entire evening hadn't just been soaked in subtle insults. And I blinked once, twice. My fingers whitened around the glass stem, but I didn't speak. Not yet, because this wasn't new. It was just the first time I realized how far it had gone. The table was a gleaming stretch of mahogany, polished so brightly it reflected every sparkle from the chandelier above. My mother sat at one end, regal in her cream blazer and signature pearls. My father sat halfway down, slicing salmon like it was a business negotiation. Sierra, ever radiant, was the centerpiece in her crimson dress, crisp, spotless, expensive. And me? I had just come from a 10-hour shift at my software firm. I barely had time to change. I still smelled faintly of office printer ink and exhaustion. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that I wasn't surprised. This was Sierra's promotion dinner. Vice president before 30, a record in her firm. The kind of accomplishment that demanded floral arrangements, custom menus, and a hand-painted congratulatory banner hanging over the fireplace, all arranged by me, all paid for by me. My name is Jill Masterson, and I'm 34. I'm a lead software engineer at a cybersecurity company in Austin, Texas. I don't talk much at family dinners, but I'm the one who makes sure the lights stay on, literally. For the past 2 years, I've covered my parents' mortgage, paid off their medical bills, cleared Sierra's rent during her rough patch. I never said no. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't know I was allowed to. And tonight, as my mother lifted her glass and praised my sister's ambition while erasing mine, I realized something horrifying. They never planned to stop using me. My eyes drifted to the pearl necklace resting on my mother's collarbone, the one I bought her for Christmas last year. "Nice," she'd said back then, inspecting it like it was costume jewelry. Not really my style, but I'll wear it to Sierra's fundraiser next month. She wore it tonight, too, proudly, almost spitefully, like a trophy. Across the table, Sierra laughed at something I didn't hear. She never looked at me directly. She didn't need to. She already knew her place in the hierarchy. Golden daughter, rising star. Me, I was the scaffolding, the stable support, forgotten unless something broke. I pressed the chilled glass to my lips, just for something to do with my hands. My stomach clenched around something tighter than hunger. "Jill," my mother said suddenly, as if remembering I was there, "are you still seeing that, what was his name, the accountant?" "We broke up 6 months ago," I said, my voice flatter than I intended. "Oh," she replied, then turned back to Sierra. "Relationships are distractions anyway. You're doing it right, focused, Driven, that was it. The final flick of the knife, not just forgotten, dismissed. I set the glass down carefully and wiped the condensation from my fingers. Underneath the table, my purse bulged slightly from the weight of folded paper. I had something in there, something I'd brought 3 dinners ago and never had the nerve to show them, something I wasn't sure I'd ever reveal. But that night, something shifted, and for the first time in my life, I stopped hoping they would see me. I decided I would show them. I used to believe that being the dependable one was enough, that if I stayed quiet, worked hard, and helped when needed, I'd eventually be seen. That love, or at least respect, would follow. But respect doesn't grow in shadows. And for most of my life, that's exactly where they kept me. The first time the imbalance truly clicked was at Sierra's college graduation. The afternoon sun blazed across the stage as Sierra accepted her diploma, all smiles and hair perfectly curled under her cap. My parents stood beaming beside me, clapping like she'd just won an Olympic medal. I clapped too. I was proud of her. Really, I was. Until later that afternoon, when they led her to the driveway, there it sat, a brand new red Mazda, gleaming in the Texas sun, topped with a white satin bow. My mother was practically vibrating with excitement. My father handed her the keys, gave a speech, even cried. Sierra screamed and jumped and hugged them both. Then my mother turned to me. "Oh, Jill." Here she handed me a small blue gift bag with my alma mater's logo printed across the front. Inside was a coffee mug. "I figured you'd like it," she said. "You're already established. You don't need anything flashy." I was 28 then, already 3 years into my job, already putting money into their emergency fund, already invisible. That was 6 years ago. I didn't keep the mug, but I did keep the memory, especially when the calls started. It was a Thursday evening when my dad rang. I remember because I'd just ordered takeout and was halfway through changing into sweatpants. His voice was awkward, unusually hesitant. "There's just been a temporary setback," he said. 1 month's mortgage, just to get through until things stabilize. 1 month turned into 2. 2 turned into 6. Then a full year, I paid quietly, automatically, until the payments felt like taxes I never consented to. Then came Sierra's rent. She'd moved to a fancy apartment in a high-rise downtown, chasing her marketing dreams. The job didn't pay enough, but the neighborhood matters, my mother insisted. She needs to be near clients. Appear successful, I covered that too, because that's what family does. Then came the utilities, then the medical bill for mom's surgery, then the car insurance because Sierra had cash flow issues, then the overdraft fees, then the new tires. Every time I hesitated, Mom had a reason. She just needs a little help finding her footing. She's not as financially savvy as you. She's building something that will benefit all of us. And every time I said yes, I told myself it was the last time. Until I stopped counting. The worst part? They never asked how I was doing, not once. Not after the breakup. Not after I took on double shifts to meet a product deadline. Not after I skipped my own vacation to help them pay their overdue HOA fines. They didn't notice when I lost weight from skipping meals. They didn't ask why I hadn't been to the dentist in 2 years. They never heard the panic in my voice when I saw my own student loan payments auto-deduct and realized my balance hadn't budged, because Jill was fine, Jill was stable. Stable enough to drain dry. I began keeping the receipts. At first, it was just to keep things organized. A manila folder labeled family support. Mortgage slips, bank transfers, utility payments. A few screenshots of text messages. It was harmless, but the folder grew heavier with every month, heavier and harder to ignore. And with it grew something I hadn't felt in years. A quiet, smoldering anger. Not the explosive kind, the surgical kind, the kind that waits, plans, counts, because somewhere in the middle of all this giving, I realized something that changed everything. They didn't love me despite what I gave. They loved me because of it, and I wasn't sure that counted as love at all. It happened on a Sunday. The kind of day that feels harmless, sunlight streaming through the windows, the smell of lemon polish lingering in the air, birds chirping somewhere outside. I was at my parents' house, sorting through papers on my mother's desk. She'd called me the night before, saying she needed help organizing her tax forms. "You're so good with numbers, Jill," she'd said. A compliment shaped like a leash. I almost said no. Almost, but habits die hard, so I went. The desk was a mess of envelopes, binders, and receipts. Most of it was junk, expired coupons, brochures, grocery lists, but I worked methodically, like always. I was halfway through a stack of folders when I saw it. A student loan statement. Sierra's name was printed across the top, but the account number, my account number, was listed on the payment line. My heart paused, then kicked back in with a thud. Number. It had to be a mistake, a clerical mix-up. But my hands moved faster than my brain, flipping through the rest of the folder. Credit card statements, car insurance receipts, payment confirmations, transfers, dozens of them. All routed through my account. I sat back, dizzy. A $19,400 student loan payment, a $3,600 car payment, $9,200 in credit card charges, restaurants, retail, business lunches. I'd thought I was covering mortgage bills. I was funding a lifestyle. I don't remember standing up. I just remember the sting in my throat, the way my chest felt like it was caving in. That's when I heard footsteps. I turned to see my mother standing in the doorway, her crisp white blouse tucked neatly beneath that same pearl necklace. The one I'd bought, the one she only wore to Sierra's events. "Did you find the mortgage forms?" she asked, her eyes skimming the pile in my lap. Then she saw what I was holding. Her expression didn't change. Not guilt, not fear, just mild irritation, like I'd found a Christmas gift early. "What is this?" I asked, my voice hollow. Her lips pursed. "Don't make a scene, Jill." My father appeared behind her, glasses perched on his forehead, jaw clenched. Sierra drifted into view behind them, scrolling on her phone. None of them looked surprised. None of them looked sorry. "You used my money to pay Sierra's loans?" I asked. My voice shook, not from nerves, but from something deeper, something hot and rising. My mother waved a hand dismissively. "You were helping the family. Sierra's loans were the most pressing need. And the car payments?" I held up another page. "She meets clients," my father said, as if that settled it. "And the credit cards? $9,000 for dresses and dinners?" My mother shrugged. "Appearance matters. Marketing is image-based." Sierra finally looked up. "I didn't ask for any of this," she said softly. "Mom said you were happy to help." I felt like I was underwater, every sound muffled, every motion slow. My own voice came from a distance. I thought I was helping temporarily. I looked down at the papers in my hand, concrete proof that this wasn't temporary. It was systematic, planned, expected. They hadn't just taken from me. they'd decided I owed them. I walked past them, down the hallway, into the guest room where I used to sleep during holidays. I closed the door and locked it. Inside, I sat on the bed and stared at the mountain of papers, now stacked neatly in the accordion file I always carried in my bag. $61,000. I'd done the math a month ago, but seeing it in hard print, broken down, annotated, highlighted, made it real, and seeing their faces made it irreversible. That night, I didn't sleep. I drove back to my apartment, shaking the entire ride. I laid the binder on my kitchen table and stared at it like it might explode. Then I called Diane, my closest friend, my colleague, the only person who knew fragments of what I'd been carrying. She met me the next morning at a cafe, slid into the booth across from me, and took the binder without a word. She flipped through the pages slowly, meticulous, silent. When she closed it, her fingers drummed once against the cover. "This isn't family support, Jill," she said. "This is exploitation." The words struck like a blade. I nodded, swallowing against the lump in my throat. "I know." And in that moment, something inside me hardened. Not cold, not bitter, just clear. I didn't plan to do it that night, but rage, when quiet for too long, has a way of blooming at the worst possible moment, and the best possible one. We were back at the same table, the same chandelier, the same salmon, the same rituals of pretend affection. It was supposed to be another celebration. Sierra had landed a new client. My mother had called me 2 days earlier, framing it as a small dinner, just family. No pressure. I knew better. They never invited me to share joy. They invited me to fund it. I came prepared this time. Inside my purse sat the binder, now labeled in gold letters, Family Financial Records. I didn't intend to open it, but something in the way my mother greeted me, air kiss on the cheek, eyes already scanning Sierra's dress, made my skin itch. And then, during dessert, it happened. Dad lifted his wine glass and looked at Sierra with pride that bordered on worship. "Your mother and I are so proud," he said. "You've built something real." Mom nodded. "It's because you focused. You didn't let yourself get distracted with dead-end jobs or messy relationships." She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. I reached into my purse, slow, deliberate. The zip of the binder opening was louder than I expected. It turned heads. Then I laid it on the table like a final course. "What's this?" my mother asked, her voice cool. I didn't answer, just flipped to the first page. Mortgage breakdowns. "I've been paying your bills for over 2 years," I said. My father blinked. My mother scoffed. "That's what families do, Jill." Sierra needed time to focus on her career. I turned another page, student loans. $19,400 for a degree I didn't earn. Sierra's fork paused midair. Another page, car payments. $3,600 for the Mazda she drives to brunch. My mother's voice sharpened. "You're being dramatic." Another flip, credit cards. $9,200. Designer clothes, 5-star restaurants, work-related, right? Sierra's voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't know." "You never asked," I replied. The room crackled with tension. I could feel it, tangible, heavy. Years of unspoken truths hanging between us. My father leaned back in his chair, lips thin. "We didn't mean to take advantage, but you did." My voice was steady now, not raised, not trembling, just surgical. "You didn't ask if I could afford it. You didn't ask how it affected me. You assumed I'd keep giving because you could," my mother snapped. "Because I would," I corrected, But I won't anymore. Sierra set her fork down slowly. I thought you didn't care. You always seemed okay with it. I wasn't okay. I was just quiet. That hit her. She looked down at the table. Mom, however, didn't budge. You're just bitter. Jealous. You've always resented her success. No, I said softly. I resented the lie. Mom tilted her head. The lie that I mattered to you as much as she did. The lie that this was about love and not convenience. Then, for the first time, I pulled out the final page, a total summary. Bold font, $61,000. My mother's eyes widened, my father paled. Impossible, he said. I have every receipt, every bank statement, every message. I pushed the binder toward them. Sierra reached for it, slowly, like it might burn her. She flipped through pages, eyes scanning each one. Her hand trembled. Her expression shifted from curiosity to confusion to horror. I had no idea, she whispered. My mother leaned forward. Sierra, this isn't the place. No, Sierra said, voice hardening. This is the place. She turned to me. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were too busy believing you were the sun. And I was just the orbit. That was when Uncle Frank walked in. Late, as always, but somehow perfect in timing. Hope I'm not too late, he said, his voice cheerful until he saw our faces. What's going on? My mother's eyes darted. Nothing. Just a misunderstanding. No, I said, rising from my seat. It's a reckoning. Uncle Frank looked at the binder. Is this what you've been talking about? I nodded. He gave a low whistle. Damn. My father stood up. You invited him? I asked for backup, I said. You have each other. I needed someone too. Uncle Frank opened the binder and flipped through the pages. This is exploitation, he said flatly. I always wondered how you two kept that house running while throwing parties every quarter. My mother bristled. This is family business. No, Frank interrupted. This is theft disguised as family duty. The table was silent now. My mother looked furious. My father looked old. Sierra looked gutted. And I felt clear. I'm done, I said simply. No more payments. No more dinners. No more pretending. My mother rose, slow and stiff. You'll regret this, Jill. I met her eyes. Then I guess I'll finally regret something that's actually mine. And I left. The next morning, I couldn't stop shaking. Not from fear, not from regret, but from something new, something terrifyingly unfamiliar. Freedom. For the first time in years, I'd said what I needed to say. I hadn't backtracked. I hadn't softened the blow. I'd put every ugly truth on the table and walked away. But truth doesn't give you closure. It just opens the door. And I had no idea what came next. I met Diane for coffee again. Same booth, same cafe. She slid into the seat across from me, studying my face carefully. You look exhausted, she said. I nodded. I am. You did it? I slid the binder across the table. She flipped through it again, but slower this time. Less shock, more confirmation. This is insane, she muttered. You've been their entire financial foundation, and they never even said thank you? Not once. Diane leaned back, folding her arms. This isn't dysfunction, Jill. It's exploitation. There was that word again, still sharp, still accurate. They never saw me, I whispered. Only what I could give. She looked at me for a long time before speaking. You know what's worse than being used, she said, realizing they expect you to apologize when you stop. My breath caught in my throat. She was right. I had spent 2 years paying their bills, but it only took one night to become the villain. Because I'd stopped. Because I'd said no. Diane took a sip of her coffee, then set her mug down with quiet finality. "So," she said, "what now?" I stared out the window. Cars passed, people walked by. Everyone was moving. Everyone had somewhere to be. And I had nowhere, which meant I could go anywhere. That night, I sat on my living room floor, legs crossed, binder open beside me like a war map. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even sip the wine I'd poured. I just stared, not at the money, but at the time. 2 years of double shifts, canceled vacations, declining health. 2 years of being told I was stable, reliable, unshakable. But even a foundation can crack. When it's holding up a mansion no one asked it to build. My phone buzzed again. Missed call, Mom. Voicemail. "We need to talk. The mortgage company is getting aggressive. Call me back tonight." No greeting, no apology, not even a question about how I was doing. Just more need, more taking. I silenced it and dropped the phone face down. Then I opened my laptop. I had always imagined I'd live and die in Austin. My job was solid, my rent was manageable, my routine was safe. But safety can feel like prison when no one values your freedom. I typed software architect jobs plus relocation plus Seattle into the search bar. The results hit instantly. Salaries higher than mine. Companies with names I'd only whispered to myself in dreams. Roles that didn't just want a code monkey, they wanted vision, leadership. They wanted what I'd been giving my family for free. I sat up straighter, clicked a few listings, updated my resume, hit submit, again and again and again. 3 days later, an email landed in my inbox. Subject, offer letter, Meridian Tech, Seattle. I read it 3 times before it sank in. $135,000 starting salary. Relocation covered. Full benefits. A leadership role. A fresh start. 3,000 miles away. I forwarded the offer to Diane. She called within minutes. "You're doing it," she said. "You're really doing it." "I'm not running," I replied. "I'm choosing." She paused, then whispered, "That's the difference, isn't it?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. That was the difference. For years, I stayed because I was afraid of what would happen if I left. But now I knew. If I stayed, I would vanish. If I left, I would become real again. 1 week later, I drafted an email to my parents. Simple, cold, honest. Effective immediately. I will no longer be making mortgage or financial payments on behalf of this household. My decision is final. Please do not contact me for money again. I stared at the cursor blinking at the end of that last line. My heart thundered. Then I hit send. Seconds later, the silence in my apartment felt louder than ever. But it wasn't empty. It was clean. The morning of the family emergency meeting, my mother didn't even bother with a greeting. Her voice, cold and clipped, rang through the phone like a warning bell. "The mortgage payment didn't arrive. You need to come over." 6 o'clock sharp, I didn't respond. I didn't ask questions. I simply dressed with care, a black blouse, soft gray slacks, and the same simple gold necklace I wore to every salary negotiation. This wasn't a family meeting. It was my exit interview. When I arrived at the house, the scent of lemon polish hit me like a trigger. Everything was spotless, arranged, but no amount of surface shine could cover what was rotting underneath. My parents sat at opposite ends of the dining room table, their expressions taut. Sierra hovered in the middle, her phone in one hand, eyes darting between them. "You're early," Mom said, her voice sharp with surprise. "I came to return something," I replied. I placed the binder in the center of the table, same one from dinner. Only this time the cover read, Accountability. I flipped open the binder to the summary page and slid it forward. Mortgage payments, $28,800. Sierra's student loans, $19,400. Her car payments, $3,600. Credit cards, $9,200. My voice was calm, surgical. Total $61,000. That's the number you never asked about. Dad's fingers tapped anxiously against the table. Mom's lips thinned. That can't be accurate, she muttered. I have the bank records to prove every penny. Sierra's phone slipped from her hand. It clattered against the wood with a sharp, final sound. She reached for the binder, flipping pages like someone waking up from anesthesia. This credit card, I never even saw this bill. Mom paid it with my account, I said. Said it was for your image, marketing, and all that. Sierra looked sick. I had no idea. She said you were happy to help, my mother said, her voice rising. I turned to her. No, you told her that so you wouldn't have to ask me. Because asking meant I could say no, and you've built your lives on the assumption that I wouldn't. My dad cleared his throat. We just thought you didn't mind. You're more successful. I'm not more successful, I said. I'm just quieter. And that's how you like me. They didn't respond, so I opened my laptop. Here's my new offer letter, I said, turning the screen toward them. Sierra gasped. Seattle? Software architect at Meridian Tech. $135,000 starting. I move in 3 weeks. My mother's face drained of color. You're leaving, she whispered. I already left, you just didn't notice. The door opened behind me. Uncle Frank stepped in, holding a manila envelope. You told them? He asked. I nodded. Everything. He looked at my parents, then at the binder. About time someone called you out. My mother straightened. Frank, this isn't your concern? It is, he snapped. When your daughter pays your bills and you hide it under the guise of family loyalty, it becomes everyone's concern. Sierra stood slowly, binder in hand. She's right, she said softly. This isn't love. It's control. My mother's mouth opened, ready to defend herself. But Sierra didn't wait. She walked over to me and placed the binder back into my hands. I'm sorry, she whispered. And for the first time in years, I believed her. Not because she said the words, but because she meant them. That night, we met again, Sierra, Uncle Frank, and me, at a quiet restaurant downtown. No banners, no speeches, just honesty. Over dessert, Sierra looked at me. I'm trying to learn to stand on my own. It's harder than I thought, I nodded. It always is, but it's worth it. She smiled. I think I finally understand what you were trying to teach me. The next morning, I began packing. I labeled boxes with a black marker. Kitchen, books, start over. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Let us know when you land. We still want to visit, I didn't reply. Not yet. Some silences are sacred. Some boundaries aren't punishments. They're protection. That afternoon, I made my final payment. Not for them. For me. No more mortgages. No more secrets. Just one woman, 31 days from freedom, reclaiming her name, her voice, her life. If you've ever been the quiet one, the stable one, the one everyone leans on until there's nothing left of you, you're not alone. Tell me. What would you do if the people who raised you only saw your worth when you paid for it? Share your story in the comments, like if you've ever had to choose yourself. Subscribe for more true stories of silent strength and powerful transformation.